Hi, this is 33.4B, and this is Mr. K's. We're continuing to talk about Castro's Cuba. Cuba repelled an invasion of the Bay of Pigs. It's an attempt by pro-democracy Cubans who left their country to come back and try to knock off the pro-communist Cubans. And it was backed by the American CIA, and it was a total failure because Castro was waiting for these attackers as they hit the beach. Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, it's where the USSR removes nuclear missiles from Cuban soil. They remove nuclear missiles from Cuban soil. The United States found that the Soviets had put these missiles and launchers on Cuban soil. What's the big deal? Well, it could reach many of our major cities on the East Coast. And so President Kennedy orders the missiles to be taken out, or there's going to be nuclear war. And it brought us to just a few seconds before nuclear war, if you can think about that. But the United States agrees not to invade Cuba. If the Russians take out their nukes from Cuba, the United States agrees not to invade Cuba with U.S. troops. And to this day, we have not done that. Just to show you, here is Fidel Castro, typically in his younger days, always dressed in military outfit, fatigues, and a Cuban cigar. And here is a map of Cuba, 90 miles south of Florida. And back at that time, they had capabilities of launching missiles that would hit Miami, Atlanta, Washington, New York, as far north as Montreal and Halifax, Winnipeg, out as far west as Salt Lake City. It was a big deal. So what we did is we had a quarantine. We had ships that were patrolling this area, and if any ships came in, they would be stopped. Well, who's approaching here but Soviet ships? And if they didn't stop, we were going to sink them, which would have been an act of war. Thankfully, they did turn around, and they agreed to take their missiles out. And we agreed to take nuclear missiles out of Turkey, so the Soviets didn't feel as threatened. It was a hairy mess. Well, let's turn our attention to Central America. Anastasio Somoza. Somoza was an anti-communist dictator of Nicaragua. Now, Nicaragua is in Central America. Nicaragua, Nicaragua. He's an anti-communist dictator of Nicaragua, and if he's anti-communist, that's good enough for the United States, and they support him with millions of dollars in aid. Eventually, though, the people did not like him because he was very harsh with his rule, and he was eventually overthrown in 1979 by the Sandinistas. Sandinistas. The Sandinistas were pro-communist guerrillas, pro-communist rebels. They forced Somoza to leave Nicaragua. He flies to the United States and lives out the rest of his life, I think, in Miami in a beautiful mansion. But he had stolen a lot of money from the people. That money, U.S. aid, should have gone to the Nicaraguan people. It didn't. So Somoza has to leave the country, and replacing him is Daniel Ortega. He is a young gentleman who is a communist leader of Nicaragua. Communist leader of Nicaragua. Problem is, later on, he's going to face civil war. Now, what's a civil war? It's a war between people of the same nation who are pro-democracy and pro-communist. Now, he is in charge, and he's pro-communist. He faced a civil war against the Contras, C-O-N-T-R-A-S. The Contras. Contras were supported by the U.S. The Contras were supported by the U.S. And that civil war caused people to want open elections. He promised to have open elections. A communist giving open elections? Well, he did. And he was defeated in open elections. He was defeated in open elections by Violeta Chamorro. You don't have to really worry about her name. but he was defeated in open elections, so he stepped down. It's really the first time I've ever seen a communist in power step down when he was defeated in open elections. Well, next time we're going to finish up with Iran and Afghanistan. Now, this is Mr. K's with 33.4B. See you down the road.